And we are live. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is Joe DeLeone. But, Joe, we have some massive news that just dropped. Saturday Down South is reporting about Kirby Smart. It is not good.
Oh.
Kirby Smart has been given notice of allegations this morning on 5 counts of level 1 recruiting violations. So this is Saturday Down South reporting that Kirby Smart has also, by the University of Georgia, been suspended indefinitely through Georgia, I guess. So this is developing as the morning goes on. But
this
you know
April
what
Fools,
else?
is it not?
It's April Fools.
You started doing that. I'm just like, there's no damn way that the timing of this. I hate that. Oh, you had me for a second. You had me for 1 second, but you're a terrible actor.
I couldn't help but stop grinning. And I think that you knew that when I couldn't look you in the face. But April Fools, sir. Happy April Fools. You got.
See, I knew you were being a little weird during the pre-show when we were doing the notes. I knew something was coming. Like right before, you were just being a little weird before we went. You're like, "Are you ready?" You kind of gave me this weird vibe, and I'm like, something's a little up. But you did get me for a second. That worked because it wasn't anything totally ridiculous. That was totally plausible that Kirby did something wrong.
I know, and look, they are being investigated now.
Yeah,
they are being investigated. But what's funny is today for someone in my realm, I'm going to be cracking jokes on everybody, right?
Yeah.
Like it is coming for everyone. So I love April Fool's Day. Joe, have you ever pulled a great April Fool's joke on anybody?
Not that I can think of. It's not that I'm not creative. I'm poor at execution when it comes to these types of things. What's the best you've got? You've got to have a good one.
Oh, dude, do I? When I was in college, I was dating this girl, and
oh no,
and I didn't even think about this, but I like we had been dating for a while, probably like 6 months, and I had met her parents once, and she had not met mine, so I was like, okay, well, my mom wanted to go out to eat, so we go out to eat or whatever, and so the next day was April Fool's Day. And so I called my mom and I'm like, "Mom, what'd you think of Emily?" And she goes, "Well, yada, 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 yada." So, and I just basically came out and said, "Well, listen, we didn't want to tell you last night because we didn't want you to freak out.
Oh, no.
She's pregnant."
Oh,
and
my
I
God.
let it go on all day long. All day long, my mom's just kind of going, and she goes, "You're joking with me. You're kidding with me." And I'm like, "Mom, it's just the truth. That's why we went to meet with you last night." And I felt so bad, I never did it again. I was so much guilt that was running through my veins. And I was sending her like the screenshots that my mom was like texting me, like, "Well, have you, does her dad even like you?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't even really care if he likes me or not, So it was,
Dude, so she believed you though. She 100% bought into the.
No, I had to sell. I had to really sell on it. But she got in there. She got to believe me after a while. But it is what it is. You can't crack a joke. I mean, it's a joke. Now, looking back on it, if Ben were to come in here and say a girl was pregnant, I'd probably freak out. But my dad, when I called my dad and told him, he was like, "Congratulations, bud." He didn't. He already knew. Like you couldn't get it past him. He goes, "When's the baby due?" And I'm like, "Dad, you're receiving this way too well." So, nevertheless,
that's fantastic.
We do have a good show in store for you today. So, a lot of SEC teams and really just a lot of teams around the country have been going through their pro day. Yes, we know where Joe's going to go first, probably with Anthony Richardson. But Will Levis, I will tell you, there has been a lot of look. I sent you this week. The body transformation for Will Levis, regardless of how good or bad he is, that's insane, dude. Will Levis is turning some heads.
I think he's a little too cut for for a quarterback. I need him to be a little more meaty.
No
He's too
Do you
cut.
need a
It's weird.
jelly roll
It's
for
weird.
a quarterback?
It's a little weird. It's a little weird how like also those pictures were a little strange the way that he took them. They were very thirst trap-ish the way that he took them. They weren't because a lot of times these pro day combine gyms, which I trained at one of them for my highly unsuccessful pro day.
Okay.
They will actually take real pictures of you professionally to show a before and an after. His was like in the bathroom with his shorts pulled up all the way. It was, I don't know. I was just a little weirded out by those pictures. I think he was trying to show off a little more than just like, hey, look up, hey, NFL teams, look, I'm in shape. It's like, hey, everybody, look how jacked I am. That's the impression that.
Well, he is jacked.
Yeah, but I also, by the way, and you were kind of leaning into this, I don't think that's telling at all of like him being successful. I don't think that means anything for me if he's gonna.
Here's when stuff like that happens. You know what it tells me?
What?
Okay, I really look at Kentucky and ask, what were you doing? Like, because
he's always been cut though. He's always been like a big bulky
like
kid.
That.
He's been built like a linebacker, and he dropped a little bit of the fat.
No, he gained muscle. He looked like the Caucasian Hulk.
If you do your pro day prep correctly, that's the outcome. That's supposed to be what you're the change the difference.
Well, you know what? It shows that he actually gives a damn. To me,
yeah,
it shows that he gives a damn. Unlike somebody that we'll talk about in these pro day workouts today. Also, NIL hearing, Joe. I'm moving ever so closer to us needing a commissioner. I just don't know how college football is going to get throughout all of this without a commissioner. Chris Murphy, the Democrat from Connecticut. I'm gonna rip both parties this morning. Okay.
Yeah, neither side's on good terms.
Neither side's on good terms. So don't you paint me with a brush of Blake's doing this and doing this. I'm gonna rip Diana Harshbarger, the Republican from Tennessee, this morning, and I'm going to rip Chris Murphy, the Democrat from Connecticut. Joe, I just don't. I don't get it. I don't understand. How have you had 24 months to prepare for NIL in this hearing, and you're still this stupid?
Well, it's.
Go ahead.
No. I'm cutting you off. Finish your point. Sorry.
The only thing I was going to say is, if you're this unknowledgeable about NIL and college athletics and capitalism, then everything else that goes on in our judicial system, what else are you that unknowledgeable about? Because NIL is not that difficult to understand.
No. So it's very similar, and it reminds me of, have you seen any of the clips from the hearings that were going on for TikTok and if they're going to ban it or not?
I saw that. Yeah.
And the stupidity of some of these questions of like, can they access my home Wi-Fi? And like the TikTok CEO is like, how do you think that you get on the platform? You need to be accessing the internet. And it's very similar to where you show up and you're asking just stupid question after stupid question without showing up informed. And that's everything.
So that's what attorneys do. Trust me. I'm around them. Okay.
Yeah.
Way too much. They ask a question and be like, okay, well, do they connect to home Wi-Fi? Well, can the Wi-Fi be, they're asking.
They're trying to ask leading questions.
Leading questions, yeah. They're not asking leading questions in NIL, though. So like Diana Harshbarger and Chris Murphy. I know that both of you are on different party lengths and have different understandings and different beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Both of you are idiots.
Yeah.
When it comes to college athletics, I will tell you on a scale of 1 to 10 how big of idiots you are. 9.7, because there's always room for improvement for you to be a bigger idiot. All right, so we'll talk on that as well, and then we'll get to some questions at the end. But let's get to a couple of them. Ryan Terry says, good morning, everybody. Hope everyone is doing good after the storms the last couple days. I did talk to one of our colleagues with Believe Ty Richardson last night. Our buddies in Arkansas got absolutely popped by a F5 tornado last night, Little Rock. So look, that's the University of Arkansas, and we're thinking about everybody there. So yeah, it was pretty bad down in the South last night. Dane Bergeron says, good morning, guys. Joe Boo is in the house. By the way, speaking of Joe, We were on the stadium last night. Okay, we streamed our content was on stadium last night. What's my first name?
Yeah, I don't understand why. That was Lauren. That was our graphics designer.
Okay, well,
Lauren, who made that.
Lauren just got a demerit. I have issued down a demerit on Lauren.
It's the Joe and Joe show now. It's the Joe and Joe show. That's what it is.
I mean, it's not technically wrong because my middle name is Joseph, I guess.
Oh, is it actually?
Yeah. So I mean, but still, I don't like being called Joe. I'm not Joe Ruffino.
It's an honor to be called Joe for that mix-up to happen. But it's the Joe and Joe show now. I think that Lauren made that decision for us.
I think it's the Ruffino and Dahmer show. That's what I think.
Shut up.
A couple more. Blaine Smith said, congratulations to LSU. Great day yesterday in multiple sports. Yes, Kim Mulkey. I was thinking that we were going to get before we get to the break, Joe.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to get an all SEC women's basketball, and we'll watch some Final Four and stuff today. Bro, Caitlin Clark is unreal, dude.
Nuts.
She is unreal. And look, when she was, at the end of the game, she was going to like she was taking her jersey off. I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it. I'm like, look, because if she would have, what would have happened this morning. Yeah. We would have had a political outcry and war over her. But dude, she is Steph Curry with a bra.
Ridiculous some of the things that she's done throughout this tournament. I haven't watched a lot of it, admittedly, but I know that she played really well last night.
Well, I'm just letting you know, dude, she's really good. I mean this seriously. Any man or female that wants to learn how to play hoops, watch her play. It's like watching. She's just so good, man. She's so good. All right, so we got a lot to get into. We'll talk pro day first and NIL hearing. We might talk some women's basketball there at the end. Who knows? You know how I get. I wouldn't want to talk about it if LSU wasn't playing in a natty. That's all I'm saying.
Exactly. We wouldn't. Yeah, right, it wouldn't get brought up once.
Hey, when's the last time Notre Dame's won a national title? Seriously. Serious question.
I want to say that they won it in 2018, or it might be
right.
They won very recently. It was very recently.
Yeah, because they went a couple times in women's basketball to a national title.
Yeah, and I'm blanking on their head coach, but the head coach they had was very long time one of the best coaches in college basketball. I mean, it was them in UConn every single year for a 10-year stretch. It was that competitive, and now both those programs are a little bit down.
Well, with all due respect, hey, Gino Ariema, mommy's home. Okay. And her name is Kim Mulkey. All right. So, about our good friends over at betonline.ag. Before we get to that, everybody do us a favor, though, by hitting the like and share all of those social media groups, shared all of those social media pages. Joe, look, after the Final Four this weekend, buddy, we're that much closer to football. So, This is not going to be something that's, before when you blink, it's going to happen. So everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share. Bet Online Heisman odds were changed today. When we come out of the break, or yesterday, excuse me, when we come out of the break, I'll give the Heisman odds. Joe, a lot of people are putting money on Michael Penix Jr. We'll talk about that. Multiple SEC quarterbacks in this top 10 as well. We'll touch on all that. But where we do that is betonline.ag. Share to all your social medias. Subscribe on YouTube. We're still doing the $200 giveaway. We'll be back in 50 seconds to talk about it all next. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag.
Very fitting.
Very fitting because we're talking about Pro Day. Speaking of Pro Day, BetOnline, though, did come out with their Heisman Trophy odds. Some of them have been changed. So Drake May was plus 800, Joe. Just when BetOnline first came out with their Heisman odds, it has changed. Caleb Williams plus 500. Guess who the number 2 player in college football has the best odds to win the Heisman next season?
Michael Penix Jr.
No, Jordan Travis, Florida State, plus 800. He flips with Drake May, who's plus 1,000. Michael Penix Jr. goes all the way up to number 5 with plus 1,200. Then you got Sam Hartman, your boy, and then Bo Nix, Joe Milton, and then Jane Daniels rounds it out here. So really interesting. A lot of money coming in on Jordan Travis from Florida State. Your thoughts really quickly on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's trying to get their early big odds in right now, so the odds are shifting. I think that's what it's at, where it has been a bit of a media narrative that Jordan Travis has become this, sleeper guy for next year.
He's good.
He is, but at the same time, I don't know, man. I always get a little skeeved out, a little wary of guys who build this much buzz early. Like, I got to see what he does start of the season, early stretch of the season before I can fully commit to what his full outcome is going to be.
You mean like Bo Nix did last year?
No, because Bo didn't get hyped up this much as
Michael
Penix for.
Dan Lanning was running his happy ass out there every week during fall camp and spring saying, Bo Nix knows exactly who he is as a person. Well, no crap, Dan Lanning.
We didn't even know for sure, though, if Bo was going to start. Like, there was a possibility that Bo didn't. There was a possibility he didn't. There was a possibility because they've got they had 2 5-stars in the roster.
Joe, that way down yonder on the Chattahoochee this weekend that my big ass isn't eating crawfish. Okay? So stop with the cap, as the young kids say. Come on now.
There were 2 5-stars. There was a competition. It's not like
true. That is
not like it wasn't possible. But no, I think everyone's trying to get in early on those odds before they aggressively start to shift further and further. I don't think it wouldn't be surprised if he's not the favorite by the time that we're like 2 weeks in, and if he has a couple of really good games.
If he beats LSU week 1, then
he goes right to the top. Everyone is going to ride his name the entire season if he beats LSU.
Here's the thing, Joe. Whichever quarterback wins that game, either if it's Jaden Daniels or if it is Jordan Travis, they go to the very top of that.
Absolutely.
I'm really interested. Speaking of draft prospects or future draft prospects, I am absolutely. There's not enough money in Tennessee for Joe Milton to be somebody who's got top 10 odds to win the Heisman. That means to tell me that somebody knows something. I will tell you. So talking about Tennessee spring, Joe, he's gotten a lot more accurate. Okay, like he has gotten a lot better from an accuracy standpoint. Some of the throws he's making is amazing. So, as an example, 2 quarterbacks this week. So let's get into this draft, this pro day stuff. So, one thing that I do want to say, this happened to 2 quarterbacks this week. Joe Milton and Jane Daniels, it both happened to. So I'll go with Jane Daniels first. Jane Daniels obviously is not going out in the draft, but Joe had the biggest day for LSU for their pro day. Okay, I'll talk about Kayshon Boutte in a minute and rip on him as an example. Dude, he's probably 15 pounds heavier. He's got a lot of the same speed, and Joe, he threw fantastic and wasn't really out there.
What's his weight right now? Because that for me is the biggest issue.
I would say 210. I would say he's like 208 to 210.
Okay.
With Joe, he was playing last year at 185.
Yes.
Okay, I'll send you the pictures. I mean, dude's gotten much bigger. I mean, like you could just tell. And that's one thing that Brian Kelly has done that LSU has not had was a Jake Flint who came from Notre Dame. I mean, like the strength and conditioning that Notre Dame had, LSU is really benefiting from that. Bill Belichick was following. This is true because, Joe, like I'm there talking to scouts, whatever. Bill Belichick followed around Jane Daniels and talked to him the entire pro day. That's interesting to me. Same thing happened with Joe Milton. Joe Milton, besides Hendon Hooker, was throwing to some of these Tennessee guys.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, jaws were hitting the floor, not because of the arm strength, mainly due to how accurate he was. I know that you don't. I know it's just air. I get all that, and I will make this comparison in a minute about Anthony Richardson. I'm not going to overreact to what you do on air. However, I do think there is a little something, even with Anthony Richardson, to that. Like, look, man, the guy's gotten better. His feet's gotten better. Whatever it is, I think you can take some, but let's call it what it is. You can't take a lot from it. Do you agree with that?
Yes. So that was what I was just about to say. Just like, and I'm on this program stating this, I'm not changing my perspective on Anthony Richardson based on how we threw at the pro day.
You are.
No, I'm not. No, because these pro day workouts don't mean as much as I think a lot of people build them up to be. I think there's a lot of media members who don't understand the scouting process and don't understand that the pro days and the combine, the biggest aspect of it is for these teams to meet with the players and to talk to the players and get to know the players better. That's the major part. We already know that Anthony Richardson has a big arm. We already know that he can sit on his butt and throw a ball easily without standing up. We know that he can do all that. We know that he's a crazy athlete. We don't need to prove anything else. So as much as I don't like for him, I don't think it's very telling. For Joe Milton's sake, like, yeah, the guy's got a big arm. He's somebody who everyone's going to get all geeked up over. And I know he might have been a little bit more accurate, but he's throwing guys that aren't getting covered. He doesn't have any pressure coming down on him. That's where I need to know that Joe can be consistent. What does he do in an SEC game when he's got Harold Perkins chasing? I don't even know if they play each other this year, but but hypothetically, he's got Harold Perkins chasing his ass down, and he's got a receiver who is tightly covered, and he's got a short window to get the ball into. Well, that's what I need to actually know.
Or one of those Megatrons from Georgia. You know, I mean, like one of those dudes. I agree with that. And, you know, Joe, you said something interesting that's so true and so right. Some media members have no idea what they're looking at. Like, dude, this whole thing about Anthony Richardson hitting the roof is on fire. The pass is, Joe, do you know how every head coach and every scout in America sees that pass when he hit the roof as an incomplete pass?
Yes.
Look, I don't mean this in a wrong way. I don't need nerds to tell me how good that was. It's not good. You're overreacting. And then, of all people, Todd McShay didn't run out there saying he hit the roof. Todd. Oh, let me rephrase that. Todd. It's horrible. Now,
I think Todd knows what he's doing, though. I think that there's other people who don't understand it's bad, but he's bringing that up because he knows that it pushes viewership and ratings. Like,
well, I am, because he thinks Anthony Richardson should be the number 1 overall pick to some extent. So
I might agree with Todd. We're not doing that on today's show. We're not letting the wheels go off.
I don't like you. I just don't like you. All right. There was one thing as we get into these pro days. There is one thing I like about Anthony Richardson that's changed. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Footwork. I don't think that so this is why I get on the case for Billy Napier, right?
Yes.
Like, I'm not sold on him. I was not sold on him at ULL. People in Lafayette, you're going to hate me for saying ULL. Get over it, eat a boudin ball. Bottom line is, Joe, how can his footwork change that drastically in 6 weeks? I mean, it's unreal that Billy Napier can't. Look, here's what I do think, though. I do think Dan Mullen's a damn good quarterbacks coach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why is Anthony Richardson willing to change now instead of Dan Mullen or Billy Napier? So it's like a double-edged sword. Like, I don't.
He was really young with Dan Mullen. He was really young when Mullen was there. So
was Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud when they were with their respective coaches, right? Like, I don't think that you can make that excuse because, look.
They came in as more ready to play recruits than Anthony Richardson was, though. But I love it when you prove my point, though, Blake, that, yes, I think that he was hindered significantly by Billy Napier. But most importantly,
when did I ever say he wasn't?
No, that's not my point. My point has always been that Anthony Richardson is the best athlete. He is the most natural athlete at the position in the entire class. So if you give him proper coaching, he is going to learn quicker than other guys. He is going to put it together than other guys. He has never had good, proper coaching. He hasn't been
that's not true. That's not true. Dan Mullen's a witch offensively. Stop that.
But Billy Napier clearly did nothing to help him progress, so he stagnated after that first spot starter year under Dan Mullen, and he stagnated right at that spot. did not improve at all. And that's basically what we saw this year. That is what my whole point has been, is that he's inexperienced and he was not properly coached to make those improvements. And I think that your point about the footwork is a great point. The more that he gets good NFL coaching, I'm actually curious now who his quarterback coach is and who he's been training with, because that's also usually pretty telling of how they'll develop. But I think if he goes to the right team with a progressive offensive coordinator, a good offensive coordinator, like Steichen, the Colts head coach, I think that he's going to be so freaking good.
Speaking of that, okay, speaking of fits and people that really want somebody, I told you this a couple weeks ago, and everybody called me nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And I texted it to you, my screenshot that I was sending people, okay? What about this CJ Stroud thing to Carolina, dude? Okay. Did you hear what's the quarterback coach name at Carolina now? What's his name?
Josh McCown.
Josh McCown. He said, well, you'll be able to hoop when you're out there in Charlotte next year.
Well, he said, I forget what it's when you move to Charlotte. That was the even more leading statement that he made, which is
Bryce
like,
Young
oh my God.
Number 1 overall, bro. You don't. Josh McCown does not make that statement if they're not drafting CJ Stroud, in my opinion. Am I crazy with that?
I agree with you, but one of my co-hosts pointed out to me that I think it was Kyle Shanahan made like a very similar, not comment, but was hovering around and following around Justin Fields during his pro day very similarly. And we thought a lot of people were pushing that like maybe this picks Justin Fields. It didn't end up being it. Ended up being Trey Lance.
But that played out in the media though. Remember that played out in the media between Shanahan and their GM. Why is it who's the San Francisco GM?
John Lynch.
John Lynch. Remember, they were going back and forth with the media because God bless it. Why am I blanking? John Lynch wanted Trey Lance, and your boy Shanahan wanted Justin Fields. Like that played out pretty immensely in that draft. So I don't think Carolina, though, as an example. So look, I think Anthony Richardson, just very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I look, as much as I might not like it, okay, in my personal opinion, he's still going to be probably a top 10 pick. All right,
there's no way he slides out after this whole process.
Just don't. Well, I say that, but then Malik Willis didn't run a 4.40, okay, in the combine. But I talking about some of these pro days. This is why I always say Ohio State's the closest thing to the SEC that we have not in the SEC. Dude, they got athletes and dudes everywhere. Like Marvin Harrison Jr. out there running routes for CJ Stroud is unreal. Jackson Smith and Jigba running like he's throwing to NFL dudes. Okay. I don't like the compare. You know what, Joe? And this was their knock. This was the knock that I heard on CJ Stroud. You ready for it? That I absolutely hate. Well, he's throwing the first round wide receivers. Well, how did that help Burrow? See, what's so funny to me about like these draft dudes who say, well, he's got first round picks. Well, here's the problem, because you'll draft a guy and then when he doesn't have success, you'll say, well, he doesn't have the weapons. Well, no crap, he doesn't have the weapons. Yeah. So it doesn't matter to me that he's throwing the two first round picks. I think CJ Stroud's made himself a crap load of money in this process. And I think it shows just how good of Ryan Day was as look, man, they had a really good offense. Like they've been a really good offensive team. They just don't have, I don't know what Ohio State's missing. I think that there's an underlying thing here. And we talked about this on our last show. I think they're the most overrated program in the country, depending on how much talent they produce without winning a natty, right? Like I always continue to say that. But ultimately, for me, I think CJ Stroud made himself a lot of money and showed why he was a really good quarterback this last year.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of irony definitely with people bringing up the having to throw to first-round receivers. I will say, though, I think CJ, more than other quarterbacks, I am concerned when he steps into a bad situation where he's going to probably have bad receivers and a bad offensive line. What does he do, though?
You say that. I mean, is Adam Thielen poo? Is Marshall poo?
That was more of a vague overarching statement of like wherever he gets drafted. I think specifically the Carolina Panthers do have an underrated offensive line. Their receivers are okay. So that's my situation here. My thought here is that when he's not throwing to the best guys on the field, the best athletes on the field, what is he going to do? And he has always been somebody who, when things don't open up, when that initial read does not open up,
he struggles.
He does the worst possible thing. I'd rather have a Lamar Jackson in his rookie year where the first thing didn't open up and he just ran. CJ stands there. CJ, he floats and then he gets hit. That you can't do. That's the Daniel Jones syndrome. He needs to work out of that. That for me is the biggest thing. And I'd argue that might be a pretty good pro comp for what CJ Stroud does in his first year is Daniel Jones, because Daniel had everything, man. Daniel had a really natural throwing motion. He was pretty accurate. Big arm, great athlete, but didn't really necessarily use it effectively in college. Mm-hmm. But up here, mentally, despite being a smart kid, couldn't figure it out really. Took him a while. He's kind of figuring it out now. I think it's going to be the same deal with CJ. We're going to be saying a ton of that about CJ Stroud. I don't look too much into the pro day stuff, but for him specifically, but I do think he's going to be the first overall pick at this point.
It seems like it's trending that way. A receiver that we unfortunately didn't get to see a lot of this year, Jackson Smith and Jigba. What's your thoughts on him? Because I'm going to tell you. Can I tell you? Here's a hot take of the show. You ready?
Yeah.
I don't think he's good enough yet.
My thing with Smith and Jigba,
he's got loud hands. He's got very loud hands. And if you talk to any scout, loud.
I don't disagree with that, but I still think he's got great for what
he does. But it's loud hands. You ever heard?
I know what you mean.
Loud hands.
Yes, I know what you mean. He's not a supernatural catcher. He's not
a supernatural catcher.
My thing with JSN, I'm disappointed that he didn't play this year, because I think I'd be a little more confident in what his capability is had he played. The other thing as well for him, and I just spent all this time talking about CJ Stroud. You place him in that situation of the year where he played a full year, removed the 300-yard game, and that's 300 less yards in his season total. And then on top of that, he still finished with, I think, like 1,300 yards. You watch a lot of those games, and he gets open because a lot of attention is diverted.
He's an elite route runner. He's an elite route runner.
He's a fantastic route runner, but a lot of attention is altered and focused on that year to Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. And there's a number of routes that I could sit here and pull up where he's open because it's a really well-schemed offense. You know, it's a really well-schemed offense to set up that tertiary receiver to get open. I wanted to see what he was going to do this year as the primary go-to guy. He wasn't going to bump out to X. He was going to probably play in the slot again. But what does he do when he is the guy? And that's what's going to happen. Wherever he is drafted, he might be, if he's drafted early, the number one receiver. I don't think that's his role in the NFL. He's not that guy. He is a slot tertiary guy who is going to be very productive with a crowded, talented receiver room. That's what he needs to go to. He can't go. I'm trying to think of a good example. He can't go to Carolina and be the number one guy there. He just can't.
Here's my thing. Okay, you ready? When it comes to Ohio State, how many times are you going to have this many elite wide receivers, running backs, DBs, etc., and you not win it? Joe, I think that there. Here's my thing. This is a staple that I go by in college football. With great recruiting comes great expectations. Okay, if you're going to recruit on the level and have players at the level that Ohio State does, I know that you played for a national title a couple years ago in the COVID year, but you got blanked, dude. At some point, Joe, this isn't just a Ryan Day issue. This happened under Urban too. Now, Urban won the first college football playoff. Good for him. I mean, but how long are we going to go off of that they have that much talent and continue to get that much talent, and they just don't win? Like, for me, if any other team not named Ohio State, like if a team in the SEC, a team in the Pac-12, a team in the ACC, we do it with Clemson. We've done it with LSU. We've done it with Georgia in the past before they won back-to-back natties. We do it with USC. We do it with so many other teams. But when it comes to Ohio State, we never, not once, talk about how much of underperforming they're doing with how much talent they're producing. You cannot have that much NFL talent on a team and not break through and win one.
For me, Ohio State, I think that it's easy to sit here and place blame on Ryan Day, but I actually don't think that it's really a Ryan Day issue because he's an offensive coach. I look at the success that they've produced has been offensively. I look at the fact that they had one of the best offensive lines and they're going to have 2 guys drafted in the top 100.
That's even worse, Joe. That makes it even worse for me.
But they have never been a team that hasn't produced offensively. I think a lot of their issues have come on the defensive side of the football. And I know I'm blanking on the defensive coordinator's name that they got from Oklahoma State.
Kerry Cooks. Kerry Combs.
No, that's not him. The guy that they got from Oklahoma State.
Kerry Combs.
I'm going to look that up in a second. Their defensive coordinator is better than what they had before.
Jim Knowles.
Jim Knowles. I knew that wasn't right. Jim Knowles is a great defensive coordinator. I think for the long term, there's a lot of potential and upside, and they looked a lot better this past season. But the problem is that they're no longer, since Urban left, they have not recruited the defensive side of the football well at all. This is very Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley-esque, where all this attention, you're getting all these big name recruits on the offensive side of the football. You're getting a 5-star receiver, a 5-star quarterback, a 5-star offensive tackle, a 5-star running back. But then you look through their recruiting class and you're like, okay, where are the defensive players? Where are those corners, the Sean Wades of the world, the Jeff Okudas of the world, the Nick Bosas, the Chase Youngs? They haven't had anyone near that caliber in a very long time since Urban Meyer.
I agree with that. They got that Jermaine Matthews kid. They got the Calvin.
I don't know if he's a first-round pick. That Tiamala kid, I'm totally butchering his name, is supposed to be extremely talented, and we saw some spurts of him in his first real year as a starter. He has some potential, but across the board, they're really lacking those 5 stars that they needed. That's what's something I don't think is talked about enough, that they're not focusing on the defensive side of the ball.
I have to push back on that because, like, I'm going down, like, as an example, right? C.J. Hicks, 5-star linebacker. Sonny Styles, safety, 6'4", 215, 5-star. And then you got Kenyatta Jackson, 5-star edge player. Omar Abar, okay, or Amari Abar, edge, 5-star. Joe, they've had them. I'm going down 247 right now. They've had.
But what are those guys' contributions, though? They might,
but that's my point. Okay, that's my point. Why are you going there to Ohio State and underperforming?
There's not enough defensive development. Again, I don't want to put any blame on the offensive side of the football. I solely place this on the defensive side of the ball and the development of those athletes and properly recruiting the right athletes to play in your system.
All right, you want to move? Let's move to a couple more guys, though.
Yes.
As we go on, I'm not going to say anything yet. I want you to make this because I've already talked on this, but I want to give this to you because I don't want there to be any homerism.
Okay.
All right. Here's some guys, though. So we talked about 3 guys. Actually, let me do this. Let's get to one more guy that everybody's talking really highly about, and then get to a couple guys that are falling. Will Levis. We did talk about him. Do you want to? I mean, we talked about him pretty much. I mean, there's nothing really else to say with him, but just in case.
So the goofy thing with Will Levis, what I wanted to bring up, we've had this week, there's I think it was the Dove Kleiman guy or one of those, there's these terrible Twitter aggregators that have big followings that don't have actual sources. There has been reporting that Will Levis is bombing interviews. I find that very hard to believe.
No, he's bombing interviews.
Is he actually, though? He was supposed to be this high-character kid.
This is the problem that I've heard that he's saying. He's basically going in there and saying, if you don't take me first, you're going to pay. And it's rubbing some organizations the wrong way. Now, let me tell you something.
I don't think it's bombing, though. That's kind of stupid to take that into account for a kid just because he's confident.
Right. So for me, so as an example, I talked to one team that has a top 5 pick. I'm not going to reveal. I
guess who it is.
Okay. And the interview that they had with him, he walked up to their owner and said, if you don't draft me, it's going to be the worst decision that you've ever made. And then he gave over his whatever questionnaire that they had. He said, have a good day, and walked out. And I was told by a buddy of mine that was in that meeting that the owner looked at him and said, go reevaluate him right now. So
in a good way or a bad way?
In a good way. So then this is the second question that I asked. Are y'all putting out false stuff to people to get people to stay away from Will Levis? They said yes.
Yes. I think that this is perfect smokescreen.
1,000%.
And we might get to Jalen Carter on this. It's the same deal. Everyone needs to remember what time of year it is. We are so close to the NFL draft. It is April. It is coming up. Something like that is perfect bait for a team to be like, okay, he was really intense and we like that. But if we spin this, we put this out to some agents, we put this out to some media people, and this gets pushed out there, a team that might have felt a little weird about the conversation might then allow it to completely dominate their thought process.
No doubt.
It doesn't usually work. It doesn't necessarily work, but we're trying to create these fake narratives so that he falls. I really think that he's going to be the second overall pick to the Houston Texans based on what we know that they value at the quarterback position. I don't think it's going to be Bryce because, and I've been saying this a lot, that I think that they're going to pick him because of what Caserio, as a former disciple of Belichick, is going to value as a quarterback. I will say this, though.
It would not shock me.
Yes. I will say this, though, Blake. I think I didn't know that aspect of it that you brought up. The dude seems corny as all hell, man. To him to be like, if you don't draft me, that's too intense, man. That's way too intense.
Well, you know who else is corny?
Such a hardo.
Well, hold on.
It's just like the pictures, man. He's such a
hardo. Hold on now. Don't act like we ain't have no corny quarterbacks that have absolutely gone out there and performed now.
Yeah.
You know, here's some quarterbacks that come to mind just off the top of my head. Andrew Luck. Hey, buddy, Andrew, stop. Okay, number 2.
He wasn't a hard.
Hold on. What?
Not like this. Andrew Luck wasn't going around telling people, if you don't draft me, you're gonna regret
No,
this.
you know what Andrew Luck was doing? You know what Andrew Luck was doing? He was going around to his teammates giving report cards.
Yeah, that's him being a dork. That's not him being like
then that's
like overly intense hardo.
Here's the problem I have with Will Levis.
Yeah.
Number one, I think that he tries to do too much at times. I think he's got all the athletic ability. I think that he's got all of the tools that you need. I think he is accurate enough. I do think that he has a big enough arm. I do think he is athletic enough. Joe, name one skill player at Kentucky that's worth a damn. Name one.
There are none.
Okay. So he's doing that in the SEC. I'm going to give him a little bit more than I do Anthony Richardson, because Anthony Richardson had more talent around him. You know what tells me that? Recruiting. Okay. Do you really think that Kentucky had a good offensive scheme too? Stop that. No. Okay, stop that. So
wait, my big problem though with Will Levis and why I don't think he's going to be successful.
You gonna let a dude finish? You yelled at me all week about you don't let me finish.
Oh, I thought you were done. I think you were transitioning points.
Go ahead.
All I was going to say is that the guy has no touch with the football. He doesn't know how to take anything off.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Because you're okay with him not having touch.
You know what you're getting with Will Levis. I think Will Levis can run a system better than what Anthony Richardson can. That's a big thing. You got to be able to go in there and command the room and run a system.
Yeah. I think though, and there's evidence of it on tape, I don't need a guy who is ripping a pass, a flare route at a running back, and it's uncatchable, or overthrowing him.
I agree with that.
He's got to fix that
a lot. Well, he also did that too because he was getting hit. Like he was the most hit quarterback in the SEC the last 2 seasons. Okay,
he was.
There's one thing here's another thing that a scout told me the other day. He goes, Blake, do you remember when Kentucky played Ole Miss and Will Levis's finger was pointing like horizontally? Okay. He goes, the kid went back in there, taped it up, and then he went 8 for 10 in his next 10 passes. That's the kind of stuff we see because we can take a kid and help him develop before we can take a kid that doesn't want to work. All right. So we'll see on Will Levis as well. Let's get to some guys that are falling. I'm going to let you go with this one first because I've talked about it this week and I don't want to seem homerish. Your thoughts on Kayshon Boutte falling so much from a first round to possibly a third round pick in this draft?
Well, it all started with he might even go further than that, Blake. I'm actually going to be completely honest with you. He might be going further than the third round. It all started with him not having a very consistent or productive year. Everyone with this anticipation of this really talented kid he was going to come in, he was going to light things up, new offensive system that should benefit him, a new quarterback that's going to get him the football, that he was going to be the most productive player. He doesn't do any of that. Then there are the whole concern of his dismissal, or not really dismissal, but departure, let's phrase it that way, of the team. There has not been a positive step throughout this entire process. And then on top of that, he looks like he hasn't been putting any effort in or preparing. This is some of the same stuff that I talk about with Stetson Bennett, where I don't think that he's been focused on and preparing as intently as some other guys. I think that his ideology is that my shit doesn't stink. Everybody knows how good I am. The NFL is going to know how good I am, and I'm going to step in and play. I will say this, though, and I don't think that Jarvis Landry had this type of a pro day process, but he did have very terrible testing numbers. I could see Kayshawn coming into the NFL as a late round pick and then having a high impact because he's a good player and he's got a good quarterback that knows how to get his head on straight. But
like if he goes to the Jets as an example, like if the Jets drafted him in the third round and A-Rod's there, that's a great spot for him. Now, those personalities.
Or if he's like a Bengals pick, like that would be perfect for him to go.
Joe ain't going to do that. Joe ain't going to let that happen. Hey, listen to me. Joe ain't gonna let that happen. There's one thing that Joe does not like from his receivers: being a diva.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Listen to me. It ain't happening. Let me tell you this. I would be utterly shocked if Kayshawn got drafted by Cincinnati.
Okay.
Utterly shocked. Now, my only thing with Kayshawn, you're spot on. Now, I don't think he falls out of the third because I think that he's got like that Georgia play that he made where he went 70. Okay, like, come on, dude. Like, let's be real. You know that the dude's got athletic ability. The problem with me is he has a 340-pound offensive lineman having a higher vertical than he does. That is inexcusable.
Do you want to know something funny, by the way? I don't mean to cut you off. So this reminds me of the fact that his vertical was bad. During my pro day, we had a kid on my team. We had 3 guys go to the NFL Combine. One of the receivers that was supposed to get drafted doesn't get drafted. He vertical is only like 27 inches. It's the worst receiver vertical ever. Guess who had a higher vertical than him?
Who?
Me. I had a higher vertical than a guy that went to the NFL Combine. And like, that's not me patting my back. It's like, that's a concern. Like you compare these two things and it's like, mine was like an inch better. And it's to your point. You're supposed to be this good athlete, but you can't freaking jump. It's either a lack of preparation or just in general, a lack of intent, I would argue.
I agree with that. All right, the last one, because I want to get to this NIL stuff, and because I think we'll speak about this at length. I don't want to get to Jalen Carter. You can talk about him if you want to. I think I think that we have talked about that too much, and I've told you that. Let me go on a little bit of a rant here. Osiris Torrance, the offensive guard from Florida /ULL, whatever you want to say. Joe, you know what they're saying about Osiris Torrance?
What?
They're talking about how his numbers are bad. You know who else's numbers were really bad at the Combine and Pro Day? This guy by the name of Orlando Brown. How's he doing? You can't test offensive linemen based off of numbers, pure numbers. Joe, what did the film tell me about Osiris Torrance? He is a monster in the middle. He claps everybody that gets in his path. He is an avalanche that is just going downhill constantly. He is the true definition. Osiris Torrance is a true definition of a mauler. Okay.
Yes.
I don't want to. The only position for me that I don't like if he can't bench 225 8 times, okay, maybe all right, cool. But offensive line is just not a position that you can go off based off of pure numbers. Because look at the numbers like Trevor Penning last year had amazing numbers. The dude got his ass kicked, okay, up and down the field when he played. Eric Fisher as an example, the number 1 overall pick that went to Kansas City. He got clapped around for multiple seasons. Turn on the film for Osiris Torrance. You cannot. He ran a 4.4. He ran a 4.3 40, and he's going 10 yards at max any given play. He's not running 40 yards on any given play. What is his 10-yard split? What is his 5-yard split? What's his shuttle look like? He's one of the best, if not the best, offensive linemen, in my opinion, in this draft from an inside perspective.
I will say this. I will say this though, the 40 I'm not paying attention to. His short area number is terrible, which is
What's
not
his
a good
short area number?
His short shuttle, he got a 5.22. Oh no, wait.
No, that's his 40.
I'm misreading this.
Yeah, you're misreading.
This stupid graphic is very hard to read. He had a 4.81, which is still a pretty slow number for
not for an O lineman. Not for an O lineman.
Not a great number. A 23.5-inch vertical is not great as well.
So he had a higher vert than Kayshon Boutte.
Wait, what was Kayshon's vert?
29.
23.5.
I thought you said 29.5.
No, 23.5. I do agree with you though. This on Torrance, I don't think anyone's taking into account. This is another one of those like media pushed ones where I think a lot of media folks are like, "Oh, look at Torrance, he can't really move." I knew on the film that this kid had slow feet and that he's a haul to get moving forward in a power-based offense, power-based system like that. He's who I want.
To Baltimore, you're in trouble.
He is displacing the shit out of dudes. He is moving dudes so easily. He is so freaking strong. You said he's a mauler. Perfect way to describe him. There's a reason why he doesn't play tackle, by the way. He's a big dude, but he doesn't play tackle
because he can't. Guard.
He's not. You don't need him to move in space. Short area. What does he do from his couple of yards of space that he is accounted for? I know that he's good enough to do it. He's a strong dude with a big ass. I know that he's going to be a great player. No, there's no pause on that.
You just said he's a dude with a big old ass. Pause. Yes.
Yeah, but there's no pause in that because he's got a big ass, and I'm appreciating his big ass. I want guards with big asses. Big anchor is what I want. Just like I want my defensive tackles to have big asses. That's exactly what I look for. Torrance is going to be a great pro, though. I don't think anyone's thinking he's going to be a first-round pick, but second round, he'll get drafted. He's going to be a plug-and-play starter.
Are you saying he's on the all-ass team?
He's on the all-ass team.
Does his milkshake bring you to the yard?
I'm not going to go that far.
All right. So let's talk about this NIL thing as we wrap up the show before we get to some of the listener questions and thoughts. So, Joe, this week we had a congressional hearing for NIL. I'm going to rip both parties here. And first off, I hate getting political. Okay. I don't want our show to be political, but when college football, as an example, or college athletics becomes political, I don't think that we have a choice other than to talk about it. So in this hearing, there's 4 major points that I want to hit on here. The lack of knowledge by lawmakers on what NIL truly is when we've had 22 months to discuss this is abysmal. If any political or any elected official doesn't know the basic principles of NIL and you've had 24 months to research it, then what else are you missing on a day in, day out basis? Number 2, they said that, well, you know how you just do it? Do revenue sharing. Revenue sharing in college athletics is not going to work because here's the problem. You want to make it so much like the NFL. You want to make it so much like the NBA. You want to make it so much like all these other things. They have revenue sharing, but they also don't have Title IX. There's this little issue called Title IX that we have issues with. If you want to do revenue sharing, women's athletics would be dismissed. I'm calling it what it is. College baseball would be dismissed to some extent. College basketball. Because as an example in the SEC, about 2/3 of the funding that you get is for football. That's not going to work with Title IX. Here's the biggest issues that I have, though. This coming from Diana Harshbarger and this coming from Chris Murray, the Republican from Tennessee and the Democrat from Connecticut. This is Diana Harshbarger saying that this is not sustainable. Well, no crap, Sherlock. That's why we're in the congressional hearing. But she says that you have one donor that will give a school or program $8 to $10 million that won't do that every year. Babe, yes, they will.
Well, so that's not how donations work, too. Like they're
doing it already. People are giving that amounts of money to the programs anyway. It happens every year. The simple fact that you don't know that is why you don't need to be on this committee. She also says you can play for – so you mean to tell me – this is a question she asked. She says, you mean to tell me that you can play for a year and then go into the portal after 1 year to get more money? Yes. How do you not know that? How do you not know?
That's the whole issue.
That's the whole issue. That is the 1,000% issue of why everybody has an issue with NIL and the transfer portal. It's because after 1 year, kids are going into the portal and getting more NIL money to go to bigger programs or other programs. How do you not know that that is the main issue, Harsbarger? And then I'm going to tiptoe down this because people who know me know I'm coming at this with a pure heart. But then Chris Murphy, the Democrat from Connecticut, he wants to make it a race issue. This is not a race issue. NIL is paying more minority college athletes than ever before. I don't understand why he's trying to make this a race issue. He says, and I'm quoting, if those predominantly white coaches and white NCAA execs can have an extended and have multiple endorsement deals, why shouldn't predominantly black students have the same opportunity? They are having the same opportunity. We're not asking, this is not a race issue. We are asking you for federal regulation to stop from kids going into the portal and kids being poached. That is ultimately the issue that we have here. This is not a political race issue that you're trying to make it. Then he says, this is a pro league. It's just like every other pro league. Y'all got to figure it out. That is a quote from Chris Murphy. It's not a pro league. It is college athletics. You don't understand this because, number one, you're a blithering idiot. How are you this big of an idiot? And then Diana Harsbarger, both of them, both sides of the aisle, Joe, here are complete and utter idiots. And then both of them run out there with their college, with one, I think she had a Tennessee thing, and then one person had a Florida helmet on, and I'm like, y'all aren't taking this seriously, Joe.
That's ridiculous. The last part's ridiculous. Sorry, continue.
But I would get paid $50,000 a year to be the commissioner. We got to go to a commissioner, Joe, because if you don't and you don't have rules based, you can't get a salary cap, Joe. You can't have a salary cap. What they're going to have to do, you want to know how you stop this? Let me tell you what has to happen. You have to hit schools for tampering. If you start popping schools for recruiting violations with tampering, it will stop, or you will find out really quickly who the teams are doing it. You got to come down with legislation that if you're tampering in recruiting, that you have issues. They didn't. So here's another thing with our political society. They are the main reason, by the way, that NIL is a problem or an issue anyway, because they sided with your boy for the NCAA football game. Okay? You're the reason that this is going on. And then the stupid NCAA has allowed all this to happen because they want to go to federal court on it. Joe, we're back at square one.
Yeah.
We're back at square one.
The problem is now that we've brought them into discussion and they're 3 steps behind. And like, I look at what Chris Murphy was saying, and all I get from that is he's trying to make the argument that he seems like the debate is if NIL should be a thing. And that's not what we're talking about. It's how do we regulate this so that it's fair and that there is less wild lack of control over it and the way that it's handled. I think that the biggest thing here is that we need more put in place to simplify the process. Look, I think what would really make it better, Blake, is that if you sign an NIL deal and you sign a contract, you have to stay at the school for a certain period of time. It's that simple. That is going to alleviate so many issues. And there needs to be a standard national contract that is signed by the donor or the marketing representative or whoever is paying the check and the athlete and the school. Those 3 parties need to have a consistent contract and they need to sign it. That is what you would hope would come from these things, that they would be caught up and take this seriously enough to realize there is a wild lack of accountability across the board, from the donors, from the players, from the coaches, everything. There's a wild lack of accountability and consistency. If we have a standard contract that is required to be signed across the board with the same clauses, there's no players getting screwed, there's no teams getting screwed, no donors getting screwed, that would simplify it. But we're not. We're starting, as you said, at ground zero with people asking dumb questions that we had already answered years ago.
You can easily stop all of this. Okay. You're not going to stop it in recruiting. You're just not. You can't stop it in recruiting because of the basic nature. It's already been happening. Mm-hmm. Joe, I know of a former athlete, as an example, that got paid $400,000 to go to the University of Alabama through a 4-year stretch. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I also know of a former Heisman Trophy winner who got paid $150,000 to stay for his senior year.
Yeah.
So this has been going on. You're just seeing. So it's you know what? This is the honest analogy that I have. Basically, it's like a kid going on a field trip to see how what happens in a sewage leak, right? Like, what all happens with your garbage when you throw it in the trash? When your eyes get open to things that you had no idea that was going on, you're just seeing the sewage that is of recruiting up close and personal. And people, you ever seen the movie The Dark Knight?
Yes.
Do you remember when Heath Ledger's Joker said, a whole bus full of people a bus can explode, but one little mayor gets shot and the whole town starts freaking out? He's right. One little thing or one thing happens, we focus on everything. We focus on, NIL so bad. You had no idea how kids were getting to schools like Ohio State, LSU, Bama, Florida, Notre Dame beforehand. Don't be naive. Why we're getting the congressional hearings in this? Isn't this why we hired a political guy to run the NCAA? And he's supposed to be the one fixing this?
Well, right. That's the biggest irony too here now is that we brought this guy to, the idiot to speak to the idiots, and the idiots are all just mucking the whole thing up.
Joe, the idiot didn't even show up. Your new NCAA president didn't even go to the hearing. You know that, right?
What was he doing?
I don't know. That's a great question, but he was not there. You know what he did? He let Trey Burton, former Florida quarterback and was a tight end in the league. He let him and a Florida State softball player go up and get congressional members to explain this.
This is never gonna get fixed.
It's never gonna get
fixed. That is, these hearings are, but big thing here and final takeaway. It's never gonna get fixed because, as we know, the political system will drag anything out and no progress will actually be made. It'll be years before something happens.
None. And you know what else? We won't have our freaking video game.
Well, no, the video game's coming. That's all I care about. They keep
pushing it back. It was supposed to come out in 2024, but now it's coming out in 2025. 4 years ago, it was supposed to be released in 2023. Joe, we were supposed to have the college football game this year.
Yeah, and it was. I would rather the game be done right, though. I think it's just because they're spending more time developing it and making sure all their T's are crossed.
I want to go up. I want to play as Brian Kelly and flip the schedule around. And instead of playing USC in week 1, I want to play Notre Dame in South Bend, and I'm going to score 95 points on them in the first half.
By the way, I was going to text you a picture of this last week. So I have the old NCAA 14 and I play it sometimes. It's just a random stupid side comment. I was playing against LSU and I beat them. No, I beat them 72-0, and I almost took a picture of it and sent it to you. This is on a high difficulty too. I beat them 72-0, and I was like, "Do I send this to Blake?" And I'm like, "No, I'm gonna let him enjoy his weekend. I'm the loser who's sitting here playing video games." So
yeah, I will tell you. By the way, I just I got the pre-package for MLB The Show. Okay,
ooh, I started playing that too.
All right, so I just want to let you know, Ben Ruffino, the shortstop who got drafted by the Cincinnati Reds, is hitting 418, okay, 418, and has 26 home runs.
What difficulty do you play on?
I play on, like, what is it, like veteran?
Oh, I'm not good enough to play on veteran. I play really low down. I'm terrible.
Let me just say this.
Yeah.
I do the dynamic thing, like the dynamic difficulty.
Yeah.
Last night when I was like out, because I had the women's game on my laptop, and I was just sitting there watching the game while I was playing or whatever. I had to put it back down to rookie. I couldn't. I mean, because my batting average dropped over 100 points, and Ben was getting mad. He goes, "Daddy, you hit a home run. I can't do it." And
that's my problem with it. There's too much of a gap between like the low one and the next highest one.
I know,
and it ruins it for me. Because like I want to be stupid and bat 500 and hit 200 home runs. Like I just want to like put up stupid stats. That's the only reason why I play it. But
so here's a funny thing. You ready?
Yeah.
So last story on this video games. So I used to have a lot of buddies that because I was the only one who had the new PlayStation 2. Okay. Only one. Or was it Xbox? It was either like the Xbox 360 or PlayStation. I don't remember. I think it was Xbox. I used to have all my buddies used to come over, all of them, to my apartment, and we would play. All right. And so do you remember when you could download rosters and teams? Okay.
Yeah.
I got the West Virginia team. I downloaded, and we used to play as Pat White, and they had Noel Devine, and I forget the receiver's name. He played in the league for a while. Dude, I was I would run the spread option.
Oh my God.
I would bet $100 to everybody if I didn't have 400 yards rushing in the game and like 5 touchdowns. I would give somebody $100. Only one guy stopped me, but I bet him double to nothing. That way that I could get some money off of this, and dominated him. You do not give me a Pat White-led West Virginia team on the sticks, because you're going to lose. All right. Let's get to a couple of these.
Though.
I only run tall stop says you guys are soft. You should always play games at highest difficulty. I never said that I didn't.
Well, no, okay, I will. No, because I'm too old now. I'm like in my mid-20s. That like screw that. Like I want to enjoy myself. I come back from work and it's been a long day. I was playing it the other day on too high of a difficulty, and I was getting pissed off. Like I don't need to ruin my day even further. I want to have some fun. Screw that.
Chris H says he likes the attitude of Will Levis going in there and telling people, like, if you don't draft me, you're gonna falter. Dalton Matthews says just came in to say I hope my Sooners have way better year this year. We talked about them a little bit. Look, Oklahoma's got to have a better year, or Brent Venables is in trouble. Man, I just don't see it. I think Jeff Lebby is a witch of an offensive coach, but I think Brent Venables is a horrible coach, to be honest with you right now.
I strongly disagree. I think that
you're wrong.
They're recruiting, and that they're going to be a lot better.
So recruiting at a high level doesn't mean anything. Okay, like
they didn't have the bodies last year.
But you got to explain every other coach that went to a new program that went to the portal and did things, though.
Not everyone's gonna have him. Just because one guy steps in their first year and has immediate success doesn't that mean that everyone else?
You mean like Sonny Dykes?
That was a very veteran laden.
No, they roster. Had just as many guys that hit the portal in TCU than what Oklahoma did.
There have been plenty of coaches who have had bad first years that have.
Hold on. This is the team when a coach came in. This is the teams that had the most guys that left and went into the transfer portal. You ready?
Okay.
USC was number 2. LSU was number 1. Oklahoma was number 7. TCU was number 5.
Again, I get that. I get that they're not different.
The teams, USC, LSU, TCU had more players leaving for the transfer portal than what Oklahoma did. And the teams that had the better record, wait for it, TCU, LSU, and USC.
But who are the players that are leaving? Like they lost Caleb Williams, who won the Heisman.
Yeah, okay. Well, then take out USC for just a minute. LSU had 31 scholarship players in a bowl game. 31.
They still brought in Jaden Daniels, who was a talented quarterback.
Jaden Daniels.
And they recruited Harold Perkins, who was one of the best players in the recruiting class.
31 scholarship players. Jaden Daniels not good enough to erase all of that. They were 55 players short. 55. USC, as an example, Joe, they had 4 offensive linemen that went in the portal. What are we talking about here?
If this was like Billy Napier, I think the conversation would be different, where bad first year, guys going in the portal and not recruiting well. Instead, Oklahoma has bounced back by adding a lot of portal talent, a lot of 5-star recruits. That's why I'm optimistic. That's my point.
Wrong. All right, a couple more, and then we're getting out of here.
All right.
Oh, this is true. Ty Boudreaux says Billy's Boudin, the Pepper Jack Boudin balls are the best anywhere. That's true.
I don't know what that means. That's like another language.
You've never really ate food until you've been here. David says Muffet McGraw was coach at Notre Dame's women's hoops, but if I remember correctly. Yeah, so there you go to your question earlier. Let me get a couple more of these. Lonnie Young Jr. says Ohio State can't run the ball when they need to outside of Ezekiel Elliott in that last 10 years, I think what he's trying to say.
Oh, no. J.K. Dobbins, when they had him, was very explosive offense, and the 2 kids they had this year were very good as well. I don't know if I agree with that.
I don't agree with that either. All right, Joe, was a great Saturday. Great Saturday show. So we got a lot going on. We got women's Final Four championship game. We got the men's Final Four this weekend. We got some baseball. MLB is back. My Yankees are 1-0. They play today on Fox. Anthony Judge hit the first home run of the season because he's a biracial angel. So, we'll go from there. All right. We'll see y'all on Monday. Y'all have a good day. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, which is not saying much. See you guys later. Hey.